Hello everybody. Welcome back to another stream. Hope you all been doing awesome, fantastic, having a good time. I've been having a great time. It was a public holiday in South Africa today, so I got to spend time with my baby and fiance, and we went to her mother, and it was fantastic. I hope everybody else also had a good day if you're in South Africa and you also got the day off. Um, but if you didn't, hope you had a good day at work as well. Anyways, let's jump into the stream. The title is we will be exploring VLANs on RouterOS, specifically on the CHRs, but this can be applied to any other MikroTik router, not to the CRS, but maybe to an extent. But the CRS is its own product. It's got its own OS, which is the switch OS, but I know a lot of people tend to just load RouterOS on a switch and manage it through RouterOS. So it's very similar. So what I'm going to do is just add a new lab on EVE-NG, and I just want to set up some VLANs and play around with some things. So let's call this the Network Berg Stream VLAN lab. The reason I'm doing VLANs is a lot of people actually watch my VLAN video. And it's not just my video. I've seen that a lot of other YouTube creators that maybe work with MikroTik or make videos regarding MikroTik, it's the VLAN videos that people want to get more exposure to. So this tells me there is actually people that want to learn about VLANs and how to set them up properly. So that's why I'm doing this in the stream now, to hopefully just help some more people out when it comes to VLANs. Because I know if you're new to networking or you're just getting into stuff, VLANs is such a confusing concept sometimes, but once you understand VLANs, it's really so simple and straightforward. It's literally just tagging and untagging things, but you'll figure it out the more you work on it. All right, but let's add the topology. Let's add some nodes. I'll just add some. Let's add one MikroTik quickly, just a plain old MikroTik router. And what you need to also ask yourself is, if you are working with VLANs, a lot of the times you won't just be working with MikroTik devices to set up your VLANs, because networks are so big and there's so many different vendors and stuff. I mean, it's nice to just have one vendor. Maybe you just put down a bunch of Cisco switches and that is your thing. But it could also be that you have a Cisco and you have an HP switch and you have all these other types of vendors that need to connect with each other and you need to configure VLANs, and that's where people tend to start getting confused. VXLAN I can try and look at, but it's a bigger concept than just VLANs. VXLAN is essentially creating an overlay network to span VXLAN tunnels, and what's nice about VXLAN is you get so many more VLANs or VXLANs that you can use on it. Try stuff while listening. Sorry, I'm also just listening to some music. I just want to make sure that you guys can't hear it, else I might turn off the music, but I think you shouldn't be able to hear it. I've got it turned off on OBS. Anyways, let's bring in a MikroTik router. I'm not going to use the version 7 unless we play with VXLAN. We're just going to use version 6481. Let's add a few, but we're just going to work on one for now. But let's add maybe like 4 routers. Let's keep it a router image for now. And Ethernets, I'm going to push this up a bit. I'm going to make this 24 ports on each router. So it's almost like a 24 port switch now. Yeah, VXLAN is in version 7. So something to look forward to. Something that's actually pretty cool on MikroTik. Even though other vendors have VXLAN already, but at least it's coming to MikroTik as well. So you can use VXLAN with version 7. All right, now we've got 4 MikroTiks. I'm just going to put these 3 in the corner somewhere so that we can just start focusing on VLANs on one MikroTik. Let's start this puppy up. And I'll just add a network to my management cloud quickly so that I can access the MikroTik, but also give it some internet access and stuff. This is just so we can winbox him, because I feel like a lot of people enjoy working on Winbox, even though I'm more preference to using the command line. I also use Winbox for some things, but I know Winbox or the GUI feels a lot better to use than the command line sometimes. All right, let's start up our Winbox. Let's look at our neighbors. There we have one router. Let's jump on it. And pretty basic stuff. Got a default route, got some IP address there. I don't recall me. Oh, okay, no, that's pretty normal. No, that's true. Version 7 is going to have a ton of upgrades, but there's still stuff I want them to bring out on version 7. I want ISIS. I want SD-WAN. I want segment routing. And I don't think they're going to bring that out on version 7 with the current feature sets they have already. But it would be nice. Maybe version 8, you never know. Let's see. All right, so if we want to think about switches, we first want to have a look at our interfaces. So I've got an interface list. I've got 24 Ethernet interfaces. So on a MikroTik router, at least, each interface is actually its own broadcast port. Each interface can have 4096 VLANs. So that's actually pretty cool, because you could essentially bring different ISPs or different uplinks to different switches, and you could tag your own VLAN. So it's pretty nice because each port runs in isolation. So if I configure VLAN 10 on Ether 1 and I configure VLAN 10 on Ether 7, it's like two different VLAN 10s. But we don't want to start there. Let's jump into this router as if it was a switch. So to accomplish that, we're actually going to just bridge all of the interfaces together, because when we bridge interfaces, it actually allows the ports to act in one big broadcast domain, and then it's the same as working on a switch actually. So let's just add a bridge, call it bridge 1. Let me apply that. And then I'm going to assign all my ports to this bridge. This might actually be a long process. So this I might quickly do on the command line. I might leave port 1 out because port 1 is connecting to my PC. So let's just do an interface bridge port. Let's add a port, and then the interface equals Ether 2. Can we do this? Ether 3? No, we can't do that. We might be able to do this with some scripting. That's bridge 1. Bridge 1. Let's maybe just bundle from 2 to 11, so I don't sit here the whole time just doing this. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, so Evan, SD-WAN, like Vinoff said, it is software-defined networking. So it's basically where you get to, let's say, separate your, they call it the control and data plane and all that stuff, and your configuration or management plane. But think about it this way. You might have what they call an orchestration server. So this is like my computer, and from my computer I can just configure all of the devices remotely, and it has a lot to do with stuff like automation, and not just the automation side. SD-WAN is also application smart, so it might see if you're using multiple links, which link performs better, and it can push traffic over the best link, and it's real cool stuff. And I do think SD-WAN plays a critical role in networking in the future, but MPLS, which is kind of what a lot of people run now, I don't think that's going away either, because it does have its uses. Anyways, we've got our fake switch configured, port 2 to 11. They are all now part of the same broadcast domain. So what I mean is, if I add 2 more nodes, let's just make this virtual PCs quickly. Oh, I probably should have just added 2 there. Let me add 2 more actually, because I'm going to show you what's happening with the VLANs in a secchi. So we've got 3 PCs. So the first PC I'll connect onto port 2. Sorry if you hear my dog barking. I think there's probably some stuff outside. Ether 3, I'll put another PC on. And then Ether 12, which was not part of that bridge, I'm going to put the third PC on. Not really, Evan. To an extent, there's things you can do with MikroTik, but it's not application aware. It's not actual SD-WAN. So vendors that do SD-WAN pretty good right now, in my opinion, is definitely Cisco. And the other vendor that I enjoy is Fortinet, FortiGates. Like they also perform SD-WAN pretty well. All right, let's quickly start up these PCs. And then I just quickly want to add an IP address to our bridge. So what I want you to think is 192.168, let's say 0.1/24. We're going to assign that to our bridge. So the bridge is effectively VLAN 1 now. It's the default VLAN on the MikroTik. And what we're going to see now is if I quickly just close all these windows and I assign IP addresses in that range to VPC and VPC6, they'll be able to get to each other, but we want to just also add an IP to the other VPC, VPC7, and see what happens. So let's say IP 192.168.0, let's say .2/24 with 192.168.0.1 being the gateway. And let's just copy that so we can quickly put that on the other machine. So VPC6, let's make it .3. All right, let's do a ping to 192.168.0.2. Can I get there? Yes, I can get to 0.2. Ooh, that was a loud sound. Luckily, you guys shouldn't be able to hear that. All right, and let's just go on to PC3. Let's also give this an IP. Let's make it .4 and make 192.168.0.1 the default gateway. But the question is, can 0.4 get to .1, .2, or .3? So let's quickly do a ping test. Ping 192.168.0.1. I can't. Can I get to .2? It's also going to fail. And the reason for that is port 12 is not part of this bridge. It's not part of the switch port, so to speak, because what I mentioned earlier is when we bridge the ports, a bridge effectively turns whatever ports you bridge together into a switch. These ports allows these devices to be on the same broadcast domain, whereas again on a normal router each port is its own broadcast domain. So what we could do to make it work is if we add Ether 12 to our bridge and we do a ping now 2.2, now we actually get a response. Now we can see things are working, but we're not even in the VLAN field yet. We are just talking about creating a switch where everything is now in VLAN 1. And that's the nice thing kind of with the MikroTik is we could have multiple bridges, and these bridges could effectively each be their own switch. So there could be a bridge 2, and then bridge 2 could have all of the other ports. So let's say from 13 to upwards, and those devices would be in the same broadcast domain in the same VLAN 1, but they wouldn't be able to get to the stuff on the bridge 1. I might add a few ports quickly there just to demonstrate. So let's do that. Admin blank. Let's do an interface bridge port add interface equals Ether 13, and our bridge is bridge 2. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, Actually, let's just add all the ports. It's going to be quick enough. '23, 24. So now I've basically added 2 bridges on the MikroTik on the CHR. So there's a bridge 1 and a bridge 2. And then on bridge 1, I've assigned Ether 2 up to 12 for bridge 1. And then on bridge 2, I've assigned Ether 13 to Ether 24. So bridge 1 and 2 are effectively their own switches. They're their own, not hardware switches in this case, they're pretty much software switches. But you'll also notice something interesting with the interfaces. These interfaces all change to RS, which is running, and they are slave interfaces. And they're all slave to the bridge now. Whereas if you didn't assign the ports to the bridge, they'd all just be R if you have a cable connected, or it would be blank if there's nothing connected. Okay, so now we technically have 2 fake switches on this MikroTik, but let's actually look at VLANs. So looking at the bridge, I've actually see here stuff like VLANs. So what we could do is, I really don't use this on MikroTik. So this is also pretty new stuff for me, because mainly my access and aggregation switches are stuff like Howie or Cisco. But let's do it together and figure it out. It can't be that hard. So here we should be able to just specify which bridge, which VLANs we want to put on the bridge. Is it tagged? Is it untagged? Let's quickly test this out. I just want to see something else. If I go into the bridge itself, when we go to VLAN and we turn on VLAN filtering, here's the type of VLAN. So 0x8100 is pretty stock standard. So I'm actually not going to change that. And here we can set a PVID. So can anybody take a guess what PVID stands for? I'll give you guys like 10 seconds. But PVID, what is a PVID? Okay, so a PVID is a private VLAN ID. So this is basically what the default VLAN is for the bridge. In this case, the PVID is 1, but we could have made that VLAN 10, or we could have made it 100. What this allows us to do is, if now it's not the provider ID, it's a private VLAN ID. And just to confirm, let's do this. Let's go to MikroTik PVID. So let's look at what is a PVID. PVID. Why it's not finding anything? Oh wait, it was right there at the beginning. So PVID, the port VLAN ID. All right, so let's say in this case it's port VLAN ID, is used for access ports to tag ingress traffic with a specific VLAN ID. A dynamic entry is added to the bridge VLAN table for every PVID used. The port is automatically added as an untagged port. So in this case, VLAN 1 is just like the untagged, like the PVID at any case. Yeah, it does take about 10 seconds for the feed to come to you guys, but that is I could set it to be quicker, but I did add delay kind of on purpose. Oh, no, I get it. I could maybe just set it quicker. I might do that for the next stream, or give you guys more time as well. But let's have a look at this nice little picture. Trunk access port setup. Below you can find a very common diagram, blah, 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 blah. So here we have Ether 1, which is a trunk port. And then we've got VLAN 30 and 20 tagged. And then here we untag the ports. So let's quickly test something by connecting one of the MikroTiks. MikroTik 2, and MikroTik 2 will kind of now be a router. So this MikroTik 2, I'm just going to connect to my network as well. And I'm going to connect Ether 2 on MikroTik 2 to Ether 4 on MikroTik 1, because we're going to act as if MikroTik 1 is a switch and MikroTik 2 is a router. Let's just do maybe something like that. We might rename this stuff as well. And we're going to emulate that setup quickly by just going into the MAC address of router 2. And then we're just going to close all our windows. We're going to go into our interfaces. And then we know that Ether 2 is going to the switch MikroTik. So on Ether 2, we actually want to configure a few VLANs, like on the diagram. So let's say on the diagram, there was VLAN 30 and VLAN 20, which is tagged. So on Ether 2, what I'm going to do is just click on the plus, go to the VLAN, or I can click the VLAN tab, click on the plus here, and now I can give it a name. So we could give it VLAN 20, or we could call this LAN or LAN VLAN 20, or whatever naming convention you want to use. There's many ways people tend to use this. It's typically good to just give it a brief description, like to say this is the LAN and this is VLAN 5, or you could make it VL5 or something like that. So the LAN is running VLAN 5. The VLAN ID, so this is kind of like the PVID. Now we're going to say VLAN 5. We're going to tag on Ether 2. When we tag VLANs on an interface, basically all that happens is whenever a frame is forwarded to out of the interface and you've got that VLAN tag associated with it, VLAN 5 is basically added to the frame so that things that's on that VLAN can communicate with each other. Like that is the short of it. I hope that's not a difficult thing to understand. I might make like a little drawing for it, but in essence, things that's on the same VLAN can talk to each other, like directly. So Ether 2, let's do VLAN 30 and 20, just like on the diagram, so that people don't get confused if they do want to reference the work with this manual on MikroTik. So let's say VLAN 20 goes to Ether 2, and then we're also just going to create another VLAN. We can call this phones VLAN 30. Give that a VLAN ID of 30, and let's tag that on Ether 2 as well. Fantastic. So now we've got a LAN VLAN and we've got a phone VLAN. Perfect. So this will be on a trunk port, and we just want to jump onto our Eve topology, and then we can see Ether 4 on the switch MikroTik is now where everything is connecting to. So let's get back onto that MikroTik and let's play around with the VLANs there. So I might have to do things here with the VLANs on the bridge, but before I do that, I just want to do something pretty basic, and that is I'm going to add VLAN 20. So let's just call it again LAN VL20. Let's add it to VLAN 4 and let's see what that does. Let's do the same for the phones. Phones VLAN 30 on Ether 4. And then I'm curious, if I go into my IP neighbors, do I see anything on this? I do actually. I can see my LAN underscore VL20. So I am getting a MAC address back. Pretty cool. But I want to do this now on a switch chip layer. So let's just see if we go into our bridge and we specify stuff here. Let's say bridge 1. How would this work? Let's try this VLAN 20. Tag that on Ether 4. And on bridge 1, VLAN 30, we also tag on there. So let's quickly see if I do an IP neighbors. Do I see anything now? I'm not seeing anything there. Current tagged. Because I know Ether 4 falls under bridge 1. Let's just go into our bridge 1. Let's add VLAN filtering. Let's apply that. What do we see there? Current untagged. All right, that's good. And if I look at my neighbors, do I see anything yet? No, nothing. Interesting. Let's play around with this as if it is another switch quickly. So instead of the router scenario, let's just add another MikroTik quickly. It feels like we're adding so many MikroTiks just to get this up. This one I might not do too much on the Winbox though. Or actually, let's add it to Winbox. Let's delete that interface quickly. Ether 1 goes there. Ether 2 goes into Ether 5. So this MikroTik 4, we're going to act as if it's another switch as well. And what I want to do is just Winbox into that. Let's close all the windows. And let's do the same thing. We're going to add a bridge. Bridge 1. We do want to enable VLAN filtering. And we're just going to assign Ether 2 to that bridge so long. We're not going to assign much more. And this is just so that we could play around with some of the VLAN stuff. So let's go into our VLANs. So let's say VLAN 20. Oh, we could maybe do this as well. VLAN 20, VLAN 30. We want that tagged on Ether 2. Let's apply that. And I might just change that configuration on the switch MikroTik quickly. So let's just remove that one. Go into this config, add VLAN 30 on here as well. And let's see, can I pick anything up like that now? I'm seeing the Ether interfaces, but that's normal actually. What I want to test is to see if this works by going into VLANs. And then let's say on bridge. This would actually have been the better way to test it, but that's fine. So on bridge 1, wait, I don't want to be on this router or this switch. I want to be on our first switch router. So the best way for us to play around with the VLANs now is the ports on Ether 2 and 3 going to this virtual PCs. Let's just change their VLANs by going into the bridge, doing the VLANs. Then we can hit the plus. Then we can say on bridge 1. Then our VLAN ID is going to be, let's say 50, or actually 20, sorry, 20 for the LAN, but we're going to untag that on Ether 2 and Ether 3. So let's apply. Oh, VLAN already added. Oh, it's doing this because I've got this tag thing here. Hang on. Let's go in here, remove the VLAN filtering here. Let's go back into our VLANs. 2030, that's on Ether 4. That's tagged. And then Ether 1, VLAN 20, we are untagging on Ether 2 and Ether 3. Couldn't add new bridge VLAN. VLAN already added. Hang on. Is it because this is here? Let's try that. Oh, okay. I see. Interesting. So we can untag. Hang on. We want to do something different with this then. I'm going to remove VLAN 30 from there. So then we're going to say VLAN 20. We will tag on Ether 4, which is an uplink port. But we want to untag that on Ether 2 and Ether 3. I'm pretty sure this is the issue. There we go. So VLAN 20 is now tagged on Ether 4, but it's untagged on 2 and 3. All right. And then what I want to see is, can I close this address list? Because I'm curious now if I want to assign, let's assign a new interface call it VLAN 20 or LAN VL20, but we're going to assign this to the bridge now on bridge 1. So now we've got VLAN 20 on the bridge, and we want to move the IP address that's assigned to bridge 1 to LAN VL20. So let's quickly see. On the router, we can actually just say, can we ping 192.168.0.2? That's timing out. That's timing out. That doesn't want to work. Let's maybe turn that VLAN filtering bit back on. Let's see here. Will that change anything? Obviously, I can ping .1 because that's the router itself. You have to add the bridge as a tagged port for the VLAN. Let's see. Current tag, untag 23. VLAN 20. Because this looks pretty standard to me if I need to compare it to something like on a Cisco. Let's just see. Add a new tag port, the bridge itself. Oh, hang on. Let's go to our VLANs. Tag port, you said the bridge itself. Let's see. Does that make any change? That doesn't seem to change much. Let's untag that or remove the tag for it. So VLAN 20 on bridge 1. Let's try and untag it maybe. And that doesn't do anything. Hey, Nicola. It feels like a silly concept now, because this is now more or less just, let's say, playing around with the switch chip or the bridge VLANs for these VLANs. Bridge 1 VLAN ID. Let me quickly remove the VLAN filtering off of here again. Let's just keep that running. Go into our VLANs here, bridge 1. Let's add that there maybe. No. No. Remove, apply. You have to have the bridge tagged if you have an interface VLAN on the bridge. Hang on. Let me quickly remove this VLAN 20 here. And let's just test without any of that other stuff. So let's just go into the VPC quickly. So which one is which? That's .2, and that is .3. So can I ping 192.168.0.2? I can, okay. So the switching portion is actually working. What's not working is me adding the IP address to a VLAN interface that I'm trying to add to the bridge to make the router, you know, be the router. But let's just assume that's just a switch now. It's just a switch chip, and MikroTik 2 is still going to be the router. So what we want to do then is we want to go into our bridge, and Ether4 we've already tagged. So on MikroTik 2, let's add the IP address actually. So this is the middle MikroTik. There's the LAN for the VLAN phones. Let's add the IP address 192.168.0.1/24, or not phones, the LAN. And I just want to make sure I don't have that IP on the switch one. So let's just remove that IP there. And then I'm curious, can we ping .1? No. But I can ping between those two, which is good. So let's just try and figure this out quickly. So on router 2, if I go into my IP, well, not IP, well, I can check on my neighbors quickly and see if I pick up any neighbors like that, but nothing there. So on Ether 2, which is the uplink, we've got VLAN 20 there, which is fine. Hang on. Let's go back onto route or switch 1. Look at our VLANs. So VLANs on bridge 1, VLAN 20 is tagged on Ether 4. And Ether 4 is definitely uplinking to Ether 2. So why does that not want to actually do anything? Because I don't want to untag it. It should be tagged. Bridge 1, but we don't want to do that. Let me just turn on the VLAN filtering. I just want to see, can these machines still communicate with each other? Yeah, they can, so that didn't break anything. Now I've got a dynamic interface for bridge 1 with all the VLAN, well, VLAN 1 tagged together with all these interfaces. Current untagged. Okay, I kind of see what you meant earlier. Let's just see here. I'm going to maybe add another address again. So let's do an IP address. Add this as 192.168. Let's do 0.10/24. Let's throw that on bridge 1. And then what I want to do is throw bridge 1 here as untagged. And let's see, can I ping 192.168.0.3? Now I can ping that. That looks good. I can also ping 192.168.0.2. Can I ping what was it, .1? So .1 I still can't ping. There are no ports at VLAN. You have to activate VLAN filtering again. So let's assume I need to go into my interfaces and let's see, what happens if I add a VLAN interface as 20 on Ether 4 here. Does this do anything? Let's just call this VLAN, what is it? LAN, VLAN 20. Let me check, because like this I can see it in the neighbors. Can I ping 0.1? No, I cannot. So there's definitely something with the switching itself that I'm not doing correct now from, let's say, the switch MikroTik to the router. Oh, while that's happening, sorry, I might just close these windows quickly. Let's just stop that one, I'm going to probably remove that MikroTik from the equation, not completely, but just, you know, not actually do anything with it yet. Reason I'm doing this is I just quickly want to change these things' names. So let's call this just the switch. And let's just call this the router. Let's call it R1. So let's start R1 and start the switch back up. Let's try that, Thomas. We'll see if it works in a sec. Like I can kind of see why. Like I said, this isn't something I do typically with MikroTik. Usually we work with the routers and just tag the VLANs on an interface as an uplink to a different switch. But now we're kind of using the MikroTik as a switch, which I thought would be fun. And it is actually fun because this isn't something that I do on the day-to-day either. But for people that actually use MikroTik for switching, I'm pretty sure this makes a lot of sense. All right, let's connect onto the router and let's connect onto the switch. So the second one is the switch. Or we can just say the window on the right is the switch, the window on the left is the router. Okay, so let's try and fix this. So what we could do is, hang on, where's my bridge? What happened to my bridge? I made a mistake. The one on the left was the switch. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's go into this one. Let's just update the system identities as well, so that it makes it easier for me to see it there. So this is the switch, and the left one is now the router, R1. All right, so we're not doing anything with the bridge on R1. We're just doing stuff on the switch. So let's just say on here, let's add, let's say VLAN on bridge. No, but that should be fine. VLAN 20. But we wanted to, what are we going to do? Are we going to tag VLAN 20? Let's see. Do I still have that interface on here? I do. Let's see, can I ping 192.168.0.1? I can't ping it yet. Yeah, so Lacro, that is, yeah. So my issue is I'm on the bridge. I've got the VLAN interface here, and I just want to kind of use this as a switch now. So the switch going to the router, I just want to basically tag VLAN 20 now on Ether 4. Let's see. Do you want me to put VLAN 20 under the, makes sense as well. Let's quickly just do that. Throw you onto the bridge. I actually think that might work, to be honest. Okay, that's also not working. Let me just remove this from there. Is that doing anything? All right, so we've done that, Michael. So we've got our interfaces. We've added VLAN 20 to bridge 1. So what else can we do to make this work? Yeah. So let's see. I doubt I'm going to see anything on my neighbors here. So the neighbors are gone. Let's just test from the VPCs quickly. So from the VPCs, I'm pretty sure this is .3, yes. So can I still get to .2? Yes. Can I get to .1? So .1 I can't get to anymore, which I could get to before. Oh wait, I could get to .10, which is the IP we assigned on the switch. But .1 we can't get to. I think I did, but let's go back to the bridge and let's just see VLAN filtering is turned on. The PVID is 1. So that looks fine to me. I don't need to add like this. I don't, do I need to do this? Oh my, let's see. Maybe I need to do this. No, that doesn't seem to be changing anything, but interesting. All right, let's remove that from the bridge ports. Port extensions, VLANs. So on bridge 1, that looks fine. Let's see. All right. Let's see. So No, you need to go into the VLAN bridge tab, double click VLAN 20. All right. What do you mean tagged to? It is currently tagged to bridge 1. Hang on. That looks normal. All right, so we're in the bridge. We're in the VLAN. And what would you like me to try and do? So here we've got bridge 1. There's VLAN 20. So do you want me to what? I'm in the tab that you guys are mentioning. We can go into the bridge menu as well. Here's bridge 1. And there's our general, here's our VLAN. Okay? Here's VLAN filtering. I'm trying to see what you guys are mentioning because I'm in the bridge, and then from here if I go to the VLAN, with the VLAN filtering there's just a PVID that I can add here. Okay, so the only thing that I can see, and if I go to my actual VLAN and let's add, so here's VLAN 20. So do you guys want me to tag LAN VLAN 20 in here? Because we have tried that, but let's do it again. And let's see if we can actually get to 0.1. And I still cannot get there. You want me to add the bridge? Oh, I see what you mean. You want me to add bridge 1 to, couldn't change. All right, but we untagged that earlier. So let's remove it there and see, can I get to 0.1 then? So now I can't get to 0.1, but I'm also pretty sure now okay, I can actually still get to 0.2 and 0.3. Hang on, it's not tagged there. Let's do that. Let's test again. 0.1. It's currently there. So there's Ether 4 and bridge 1 is tagged for VLAN 20. And I don't see that it's working yet. So can I get to 0.1? No. Can I get to 0.10? I can still get to that. So it looks good, but I'm still unable to get from the switch to the router. So let's quickly check here. Because the easy way to do this, and again, this is more or less now from a switch chip perspective, if I just change that to a different router and I just tag the interfaces directly or the VLAN on the interface, like it's so easy to get there then. But this is now us assuming the MikroTik is a switch. So while that's happening, while we're talking VLANs, let's just add another switch. Cisco IOL. This will just be a switch image. Let's quickly check that. So on the switch, yes, I do have Ether 4 as one of the bridge ports. So this is part of the bridge. So Ether 2 up until Ether 12 are our bridge ports for the first switch. So use service tag is, that's, I don't know if it applies to anything for the switching, you'd more or less see that if you're working a bit with Q and Q, but your provider doesn't support Q and Q, and then you could use the service tag as a means to get the Q and Q out. But before that, we'll sort out the issue with the getting to the router in a second. I just want to add another switch quickly, but a different type of vendor switch. So this will just be this little Cisco. How many ports will this thing have? Let's say it's going to have not 4 ports. So these are 4 slots. So this will be 16. Actually, let's make it 20. And let's just add 1 switch. And then this switch, SW, hang on, there we go, switch image. We'll connect to that switch on Ether 6. So in a sense, the MikroTik 4 would also be that other MikroTik. I want to test something else out with this Cisco switch. So on the Cisco switch, we're just going to add some VLANs as well. But we want to put them in VLAN 20 to see if the computers or the VPCs can still get to each other. But this will be quick to set up. So we can just do a, we're going to convert Ether E00 into a trunk quickly. So interface E00, switch port mode trunk. This is going to complain, so let's just do switch port trunk, switch port trunk in cap. We're going to set this to .1Q. Now we can set it to trunk. And now what we want to do is just add some tags. So we're just going to tag VLAN 20 and 30 on E00. So switch port, trunk, allow pass, allow VLAN. So let's add VLAN 20 and 30. Let's just write that int E00. Hang on. Config T, switch port, interface E00, switch port trunk allow VLAN add 20. So it should just append 20 to the 30. And let's just VLAN 20. Let's call that LAN. And then VLAN 30, call that phones. And what we're going to do is we're going to do E01. We're going to untag that for VLAN 20 and just add another VPC there to see if these VPCs can get to each other. So let's do that. Config T int E01. Int E01. Switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20. Let's write that. And let's quickly add another VPC quickly. So VPC, one of you, and we're going to throw you onto the switch on E01. Quickly start you. And then we're just going to do an IP 192.168.0.5/24 with 192.168.0.1 the gateway, which we can't get to yet, but we'll figure that out now because that is an issue with the MikroTiks and the bridging and stuff. Let's just quickly see, can we actually get to any of the other machines? So 192.168.0.2, I cannot get there. 0.3, I cannot get there, but I've got a feeling it's because Ether 6 isn't set on that port. So let's just quickly jump back on the switch MikroTik. Go into our VLANs. So VLAN ID 20 associated to bridge 1. So let's add Ether 6 and apply that. Quickly see if we go back to our VPC, can we get to 0.3? I can't. And I actually expect that I should have been able to get there. But I can get to 0.1. This is so frustrating actually. Because what's happening is the switch is now just allowing the tagged stuff to communicate with each other, but not the untagged stuff. Okay, that's very interesting. Because I've got a suspicion if I remove this from the tag and add it onto here with the untagged, I might be able to get to .2 and 3. Well, clearly not. Yeah, this is really freaking frustrating actually. Because that should be tagged on Ether 6, which is fine, which is what I expect, because I'm tagging VLAN 20 on Ether 6 from the switch MikroTik, and it is tagged on the Cisco, and it's untagged to our VPC at the bottom. So this VPC should in theory be able to get to these other untagged devices. But the only thing that's happening now is I can get to the router, but I can't get to any of the actual VPCs. So this is quite the dilemma. But you have an own net for VLAN 20. Yes, so VLAN 20 has its own 192.168.0.0/24 subnet. And this is what has been defined as .1 on router 1. It's .5 on this VPC, .3 or .2, 3, 4, and the switch is .10. Let's just maybe assign some IP addresses as well so that we don't get lost where what is. So 192.168.0.1 is router. And this is just for VLAN 20 now. The switch is .10. First VPC is .2. Second .3. And VPC, well, .2 and .3 can already get to each other, which is good, which is expected. But .5 cannot get to anything that's untagged at the moment. But it can get to .1, which is weird to me because my issue is, let's just close all of these windows quickly. If I go into 0.2, is it doing anything there? I might just have to close it again and open it again. No, putty. Let's just stop the VPC, start it back up. Maybe something actually went haywire with the VPC. Let's just do an IP 192.168.0.2/24 with 0.1 as the gateway. Yeah, Ether 2 was untagged for VLAN 20, which is also why I can ping 192.168. Can I still get to .3? So yes, I can get to .3, but I can't get to .1, which is the annoying bit for me because I can get to .1 from the Cisco switch now. But I can get to, okay, .2 can get to itself. I can get to .3. And our issue is on the switch. If I go into the VLANs, I look on bridge 1 for VLAN 20. Ether 4 is tagged and Ether 6 is tagged. I really doubt the issues on the Cisco, but we can quickly look at the Cisco as well. So what we've got is Ether 0, which is a trunk, which we've like spanned 20 and 30. And then on Ether 01, we've set VLAN 20 as a untagged port or an access port. All right, let's try that, Michael. So all of the untagged business, let's remove them. So Ether 2 and 3, and let's just add them as tagged interfaces, I'm guessing. But I don't necessarily want it to set VLAN 20 as the PVID, because I wanted to bring in some additional VLANs like VLAN 30 for phones or whatever. But let's add all of them as, let's say, tagged. And let's quickly see from .2, is this .2? I think so. Can I get to .3? Yes. Can I get to .1? Still can't get to .1. Can I get to .5? No, I cannot get to .5. All right, it was untagged. So on the bridge, Ether 2 was untagged here. I just removed it from there. So this is currently what's here. Now we've done what Michael kind of suggested. No, but it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave VLAN 1 as the default, but we could do that. We can go into the bridge. We can add the PVID as 20. And then let's go into our VLANs. Yes, I'm in the bridge ports. So in our bridge ports, we've got bridge 1 for VLAN 20. And now we've got 4. All right. Oh, you mean when we go into the port and we go and look at, oh, I see what you mean. I actually think that makes a lot of sense. That might actually also work a bit better, to be honest. So let's go into Ether 2. And I get what you mean. So if we go into the VLAN here, we can set the PVID for this port specifically to VLAN 20. So let's try that and see if this does have any impact. Let's just go to our VLANs as well. And let's quickly see from our VPC. Can I get to .1 yet? I can't get to .1 yet. And .5, I can't get there. If we're doing this, should I keep these interfaces tagged? Yeah, let's just remove the bridge back to PVID 1. Go into our VLANs on bridge 1. Yeah, it's changed back now. But I feel like I still can't get to 0.5. All right, let's do that. Ether 2 and Ether 3. Let's apply. And let's quickly see. That has done the trick, Michael. You're a genius. So now we can get across. Awesome. So this is just very basic layer 2 switching. So the VPC, let me just see, what is your IP? You are .3. So can .3 get to 192.168.0.1? It can. And that means it should be able to get to 192.168.0.5 as well. All right. So that was quite the nuisance. But what we've done now is we've set VLAN 20 directly on the bridge here instead of assigning it through this VLAN portion. If I remove this VLAN bit here, will everything still work? Let's just disable it and see. No. But this is for the tagging now. Okay. So let's re-enable that. So that makes sense. So let's say we're going to do tagging through the VLAN tab, but the ports is where we can assign our access ports. Does that sound about right? Masula, so what we'll do is we'll add another VLAN, so VLAN 30, since we now have a good grasp of what's actually happening with this bridge extension of switching. But Michael and Lacro, you guys have been very helpful. So what we're doing is essentially when we assign the port, we can specify on the port itself what the access port is for the VLAN. So in this case, VLAN or Ether2, we've made the access port as 20. So I would have imagined we would have done it here by untagging it here, but that didn't work. But it kind of doesn't make sense to me that why, if we untag it here, it doesn't work. Because in my head, that should in theory work, but that's fine. We'll read up on that. And then we're just using this VLANs tab as a way to tag where the VLANs can traverse. All right, pretty interesting stuff. All right, so for you, Masula, let's quickly add another VLAN, and now this should go a lot more smooth. So I'm just quickly going to close all these little windows here. And this is now just, again, like VLANs on layer 2. This is just switching. This isn't like VLAN spanning stuff across between networks and stuff. This is literally layer 2. But it's pretty cool that we at least got that bit fixed. So what we're going to do is, let's just add 2 more nodes quickly. They'll just be plain VPCs, but these will now kind of like be phones. Let's say these are actually phones. Not really, but let's act like they're phones. Let me just see, do I have a phone icon? I've got an IP phone here. Does this actually look like a phone or not? It does. Just added one, so let's add another one. Node VPC, and then I had a IP phone. Let's maybe let's keep it blue. All right. So now we're gonna have 2 phones, and they're also just gonna be, this is just for layer 2 switching now. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butcher your name. Let's say Masuhula. Apologies. All right, so now we're going to go into the MikroTik switch on Ether 7 and on the Cisco switch on Ether 2. And we'll also have a gateway like on the router. Let's just quickly refresh our topology. So now we've got our 2 phones. Let's give them IPs, but they'll be in a different range. So let's say 172.16.0 dot. Let's make it .2 is this phone on the right, and .3 will be the phone on the, well, there I've got my spaces wrong. That's the left. And then .3 is, well, .3 is the right, .2 is the left. Let's do it that way. And all that we're going to do is this phone, let's give it an IP, so long. So IP 172.16.0.2/25, and let's make 172.16.0.1 the default gateway. And that IP we're going to assign to the router as well, but on VLAN 30. So VLAN 30 is this 172 range. Okay, let's jump on here. IP 172.16.0.3/25 with 172.16.0.1 being the gateway. All right. So let's quickly do the switching on the Cisco, because again, this is pretty straightforward stuff. We're actually just going to untag a port, because if I do a show run int E00, E00 is already allowing VLAN 30, which is for the phones, to go over the trunk, to go to the other switch, the uplink switch. All right, we'll get there just now. So what we're going to do is on the Cisco for E02, we're just going to untag VLAN 30 for that phone. So let's do a int E0, what was it, 2. switchboard mode access, and then our switchboard access VLAN is 30. So that is now on the phone network. And let's jump to the VPC on the right. Do I already have it open or not? No. Okay. So this will, now while I'm on the VPC, where we don't want to do jack on the VPC, we want to do some work on the switch. So let's go into our switch. I don't need to have the router open for now. And then what we want to do is on the switch, we're going to make sure that we add for bridge 1, VLAN 30, we're going to tag on Ether 6. That looks good. And let's go to our ports and let's just see Ether 7. We're going to set this private VLAN ID to 30. And that should actually be it if I'm right. Let's just check. That looks fine. Okay, let's just quickly do a test. Do I still have the VPC open? I actually think I do. Okay. You need bridge tagged on VLAN 30. What, do I need to tag 30? Let's just quickly do this. Ping 172.16.0.2. So I can get to .2 from .3. So that is working. We didn't add the tag now. So on the switch, the only thing I've done is for VLAN 30, I've tagged it on Ether 6 so that it can be carried across on that interface for tagging. I'm going to add it for Ether 4 as well, because we do want to get to the actual router. And then from the router, we're just going to add an IP address as 172.16.0.1/25 on phones VLAN 30. So VLAN 30 for the phones goes to Ether 2. So this is pretty normal VLAN tagging stuff that people will do in MikroTik. What we're doing with the bridges isn't really like something that I'm familiar with. Okay, why did it untag Ether 7? Oh, because we added the PVID. That actually makes so much sense. But I don't get why it wouldn't work again when we untag it there, but it's fine. It's fine. Let's quickly go to our VPC. And from our VPC, let's just see, can we ping 0.1? All right, so we can get to 0.1. So what we now have is we have successfully spanned VLAN 30 on both a Cisco and MikroTik switch to a MikroTik router so that they can get to their respective networks. So I want to keep this MikroTik switch now just as a switch. I don't want to actually assign an IP address in that range for it, like because you typically wouldn't do that on a switch. Like on the switch, you'd have your management IPs, or you might put an IP in that range if you want to test something, but the switch would just be there for layer 2 purposes unless you are using it as a layer 3 switch. All right, Michael, I understand. Thanks for clearing that up. That actually makes a lot of sense. I'm just like confused why it anyways adds Ether 7 as an untagged interface here. But that's besides the point. I'm just happy it actually does work. We just had to assign the PVID directly on the ports, which I didn't do before. So that actually makes a lot of sense. All right, so that is very basic VLAN, like layer 2 stuff. Let's try and expand this a little bit, but we're not gonna do like plain switching now. So we're just going to do some pretty stock standard VLANs from MikroTik to MikroTik quickly. So we've got a MikroTik 3 there. and its ether 1 will connect to ether 3 on router 1, because this is, I feel like VLANs that people might be more familiar with if they're just working on a normal MikroTik. Let's just refresh our topology here. And then what we might get is router 1. Let's just jump into it. That's the switch. There's the router. So on router 1, we know that ether 3 now goes to MikroTik 3. So very basic, we're just going to go into our interfaces, add a new VLAN. And it's just like these other interfaces that we assigned on the router. So let's call this to client 1. Our VLAN ID we could make 100. And we're going to tag that on ether 3. So this is pretty stock standard, easy to configure VLANs. So now we've got a, wait, let's also just make the underscore VL100 just for reference sake, so that people know, okay, VLAN 100 is this interface. And we are going to have to do the same on MikroTik 3. So this I might do from the command line quickly. Admin blank, no. So let's do interface VLAN add. VLAN ID is 100. Our interface is ether 1. Our name is to R1 VL100. So if I do an IP neighbor print, I should see there is my VLAN interface. We can just print this as detailed just to get some more info. So there's the interface. That's the MAC address we're learning. All that good stuff. So let's just quickly assign like a WAN IP maybe between the devices. So let's go into our IP addresses, add a 10.0.0.1/30, throw that on our to client 1 VLAN 100, and let's just add the IP address on the router on the right hand side as well. So IP address, add address equals 100.2/30, and that will now be on the 2R1 VLAN 100. So this is pretty straightforward. Now we can just ping 10.0.0.1. So now we've technically got like a way to get from this router, the client router, to router 1 to break out to the internet. Let's do something that's also pretty stock standard, and I might use another Cisco switch again, but just to do some DHCP on a VLAN. Yeah, that makes sense, Michael. All right. So maybe I'll just stick to my Howie and Cisco switches. But to be honest, I really don't have any like CRSs in production. And I just wanted to do some VLAN stuff because, like I said earlier in the video, a lot of people seem to really want to understand VLANs on MikroTik. So if it's for the layer 2, what we were struggling with, what you guys helped with, great. Maybe somebody learned something out of that. But now I'm just going to do more of the stock standard type of VLAN things you'll see maybe in your MTC, and I want to say MTCNA, but they don't teach you about VLANs in the MTCNA. They teach about it in the MTCRE for some reason. Don't know why, but it is what it is. So I want to just add this switch. Let's just add a plain switch icon. This definitely isn't a Nexus. There we go. There's a good switch icon. Let's add some 5 ports again, even though we're not going to use them all. And that looks good. So let's start this puppy up. Connect the switch onto the MikroTik on Ether 2, which might be the LAN uplink. And now from this switch, let's just add a VPC for a client, like a computer that somebody might be using. Oh wait, I might be able to use a better node, even though this is just on Eve Pro. Let's get the Docker in and add the GUI server, and let's just call this PC. Let's get a nice computer icon. Oh, that looks good, Kali. Even though this isn't Kali, but it's got Kali on it. Connect that to the switch on E01. Let's refresh our topology. And then all that we want to do is on this MikroTik 3, which I actually might do via the Winbox quickly. So let's do a interface, or not interface, tool ROM set enabled yes. And let's just system identity set name equals this. Let's make it client 1. And now we can access this MikroTik. Not yet, because I need to just enable ROM on R1 as well. So admin blank no tool ROM set enabled yes. All right. So let's jump onto this MikroTik 3 or the client 1 router by just going into our Winbox, connecting onto ROM, and there's our client 1. Connect on there. Let's zoom in a bit. Close this. So all that we're going to do is we've got our one VLAN already that's configured to go to router 1 or the WAN. So Ether 2 we know is going to go to our LAN. So let's just add another VLAN on there, which is straightforward again. So this is just interface VLAN, hit the plus. Let's call this our LAN. We can underscore it as well, VLAN. Let's make it a different VLAN. Let's make it VLAN 88. VLAN ID 88, and let's throw that onto Ether 2. So VLAN 88 is now tagged on Ether 2. So what we want to do quickly is on the switch. There's a few ways we could do this, but let's just do this with VLAN tagging. And then on this switch, enable you config t int e00 switchboard trunk in cap .1q. So that's just .1q for VLANs, and then switchport mode trunk. We can leave it as trunk, and then it will allow all the VLANs. I don't like this though. Ether 00 on VLAN. Interesting. That's actually interesting. It shouldn't be doing any of this just yet, but that's fine. Let's go into config t int e01. So we could use a bridge, but I don't want to set, I want to set this almost as a CPE, like you might see at a client. Like you could assign a bridge, because I know that if you maybe roll out like a router board on its default configuration, it does put like a bunch of the ports on a bridge. But I tend to not like having all of the interfaces in a bridge unless it's for a reason. But if you have a single port going to a switch, then that's fine. I mean, what you could also do is you could put 2 ports in a bridge, run both of the interfaces to a switch, and then STP would also just do its thing that way and give you a slight form of redundancy. Or you could configure something like bonding on the interfaces. All right, what we're first going to do is switchport mode access, switchport access VLAN 88. All right, and let's just give VLAN 88 a name. So VLAN 88 name LAN. So what IPs do we want to use for that? Let's maybe make it in the 192 range again. So the router can be 192.168. Let's make it 100.1. There we go. Duplicate that. No, not 1000. That's impossible. And let's make the PC.10. Oh, let's start this up. Oh, but I said I might want to do like DHCP, so scratch the .10 for now. Let's just make that question mark. So this is just going to be an Eve Docker. It looks like a computer, because it works like a computer. It's I don't think they run Ubuntu. I'm not completely sure what the Docker's running. Let's see there, mate. Okay. So if I go into MikroTik 3, which we have open on Winbox here, let's just quickly configure the DHCP on a VLAN level. So we're going to go into our IP DHCP server, add a DHCP server. Let's do it the quick, easy, dirty way. So DHCP setup, we want to add the interface as the VLAN. The address space, I haven't assigned the IP to the router yet, so let's just do that. That was 192.168.100.1/24 on VLAN 88. So let's do the DHCP server again. VLAN 88. That space is fine. Gateway is fine. That is fine. DNS servers 8888. Lease time 10 hours. There we go. So let's just see. How do I do this? I have config ETH0. Can I do that? Hang on. Set. Or can I do it through here? I wonder. System. Shouldn't be anything with the preferences. No, we're not using any network proxy. All right. Let's quickly check here. I wonder config. It's not getting anything there. I feel like I do need to set it for DHCP, but that's fine. I'll figure that out in a secchi. Let's just check and make sure if it's actually working, and that I can do by just going onto the switch. And we can test that by just quickly going in here, going into VLAN 88. Let's just give this an IP address of 192.168.100.254/24. And let's just make sure that's not shut down. Show IP in brief. Ping 192.168.100.1. So I can ping that. So in theory, I should be able to get an IP address on this box 192.168.100.1. All right, I'm pretty sure I need to set that for DHCP. Let me just quickly check here how. Linux. Because it should be ifconfig. Because I'm pretty sure I can get it to work if I just set it manually. But that kind of defeats the purpose of running DHCP, doesn't it? We can quickly restart the Eve server as well. Hang on. Reboot. No. Let's just shut it down here. Stop. Let's start you. And then technically this MikroTik should give the PC a DHCP address. This diagram looks a little bit messy, but it's all with purpose. So let's connect on here. Let's see if we go into our mate, if we do an ifconfig, do I have any IP there? I don't see an IP on ETH0. So it's actually not getting an IP. What do I need to set? Is it like ifconfig DHCP or? Hang on. ifconfig ETH0. And then usually you put an IP. So like 192.168.100.100. Net mask 255.255.255.0. And let's see, can I ping 192.168.100.1? Can't ping that. Interesting. Can I ping that 254? I did untag. Let's just show VLAN. So we've got VLAN 88 on ET01. Yeah, that looks fine. That does look fine. I mean, what we could do is a int E00 switch port trunk allow VLAN 88. But I doubt that should be the issue. That's definitely not the issue. Let me just disconnect this cable, reconnect again, because that does sometimes happen. So E01 to ETH0. Let's refresh. See if can I ping .1 now? Yes. So sometimes don't think it's like too much of an issue. It's literally just this. I am going to restart again because this will like lose its config it just had. If I just restart, so it won't have an IP address, and then in theory, yeah, let's try that, Gonzala. Let's see. Let's bring the server back up, connect. So if I go into my system tools terminal, if I do an ifconfig, do I have an IP? Not yet. Let's try what you said. Sudo DHCP client -r ETH0. Doesn't want to do that. Doesn't like that. DHCP, nothing there. How do I do a DHCP client on this Eve Docker? Because for the sake of making it just quicker, let's just add a VPC as well and just throw that onto E02 and just untag that for 88, and then we can just do DHCP quickly from this VPC. So let's go, I don't like that. So config t int E02 switch port mode access switch port access VLAN 88. All right, let's go into the VPC, and then from here we can just do an IP DHCP, and let's see. Okay, so it got an IP address from the MikroTik now as .253, and 0.1 is the gateway. Do I have DNS? All right, but that's because I can't get to Google yet. So let's just see, can I ping 192.168.100.1? Yes. All right, so DHCP is working. So our MikroTik on client 1 is now assigning DHCP to VLAN 88 on Ether 2, which is pretty stock standard. If we look at our leases, we can see there's a lease. We could make the lease static. There we can see it tried to assign something. Oh, dip. I think I also kind of know what's wrong. I'm just going to go into our DHCP scope quickly. There's our address pool. Let's just go into IP pools. Pool. Let's just change that to .253 because 254 is the switch and MikroTik likes assigning the last IP. But I actually think the VPC was the one that requested that IP and then it was already in use. IF config. Okay. This is pretty weird. I'm not liking this. So every time I, let's say, restart this Eve server with this version of the Cisco switch I'm using, it seems like I need to disconnect this cable, which is pretty annoying actually. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's do a nano. I don't know if nano runs on this, but let's see. ETC network interface. Network. There's no interface here. Cat ETC network. Hang on. CD ETC network. LA. So there's like no. I don't know what to do for DHCP on this Eve server. Let's just do an IF config again since I've I already assigned the IP address as that. But it's not the end of the world. I mean, we know DHCP works because the VPC can get its IP address dynamically over that VLAN. Let's just quickly give some internet over this VLAN 100 as well. So on our client 1, let's just assign a default route out quickly via 10.0.0.1, and that's via the VLAN 100. Let's just assign a NAT rule as well, just to mask the traffic, and that's traffic leaving VLAN 100. We masquerade. And let's just see, can this thing get any breakout now? Oh, I don't have a route added, so what is this? Route add default gateway 168. No, yeah, actually it's right. 192.168.100.1. Can I ping 8888? I cannot ping 8888, but the reason for that is on the actual router or R1. I'm pretty sure I don't have a mask rule on here, so let's just add one. So our out interface is Ether1 in this case, and it's being masqueraded. Let's see, can I get out now? Not yet. Does this have any breakout? This does. Okay. So in theory, I should actually have some breakout, to be honest. Let's just see. My default route goes out 10.0.0.1, which is fine. Ping 8888. So I've got actual internet access out from the client 1 router. IP firewall, mangle. No, I don't need to do anything there. This is actually all fine already, to be honest. Let's just see from the VPC, do I have internet access or not? So let's see, can I ping Google now? That's 3 O's. Yeah. So from the VPC, I've got internet access. From the Eve server, I do not. Do I have the right gateway? Yes. Man, this Eve server is being so trippy with me right now. So I'm just going to actually close down the Eve GUI. I wanted to use it because it's cool and it's fun to use the Docker, but I'm now having more issues than what I would have liked. So let's just make this 192.168.100.253 for the DHCP on the VPC, and we know we've got internet access out through VLAN 88, which we've assigned on this client 1 router. Let's just stop it, rename this. So we've got a client 1 router. Let's just start that up. So we've got VLAN 100 running between router 1 and client 1, and then we've got VLAN 88 running from the client 1 router to the switches, and then its access ports down here. All right. Is that router still booting up? Quite possibly. Ping 8888. Ping 10.0.0.1. And now I can't ping out. Let's do the good old cable change. That looks about right. All right, so that is also failing for whatever reason. Let's see here, Ether or router 1. That's assigned to Ether 3, so that's fine. Let's just refresh our topology. But this topology is starting to look a little bit messy. Can't ping there. If I do an IP neighbor print, I'm only seeing my Ether 2 device now. All right. Let's stop these 2 routers. Bring them back up. I might actually just shut down all the equipment here. Close that. Close that. Start our routers. And let's see, router 1, can you communicate with router or client 1? Print, that's fine. Ping, 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 888, that's fine. Interface, actually we don't want to look at interface, let's just look IP neighbor. I can see 10.0.0.2 now, and I can ping 10.0.0.2 now. Fantastic. The good old reboot. Admin blank. All right, this all works. Probably want to boot the switch up as well. Maybe I should maybe I should get a actual CRS and plug a physical device into a lab to play around with that, because it is, I think, quite different using these CHRs and acting as if it is like a layer 2 switch. All right. Let's just add DHCP for the VPC again. So IP DHCP. Now it's going to do the good old DORA. And we've got an IP address. And we should have internet access out. Nice. All right. Ooh, I should actually have kept that on. I'm going to stop the routers, and there's one more VLAN concept that I kind of want to cover with some people. And I know this sometimes also freaks people out. So let's say we've got a VPC, we've got our LAN here. And then on our LAN, let's add another VPC, but this will be like a phone again. Node, VPC. Let's make you a phone. Coffee. Let's make it a coffee. There we go. A nice cup of coffee, getting internet. Internet of Things has really advanced a lot, since your coffee can now tell you how hot it is. Let's start our coffee up, but our coffee we're going to put in a different VLAN. Let's maybe add some text or flavor just for this. So the LAN is VLAN 88. And our coffee is going to be VLAN 90. But I'm going to actually throw another cup of coffee in here. Virtual PC, make you another coffee. Coffee, coffee, coffee. So these coffees are in VLAN 90. But the PC is in VLAN 88. So this is sometimes something that people want to know is like, how can things in different VLANs communicate with each other? And it's quite simple. If things are just on a switching layer, then only devices in the same broadcast domain in the same VLAN can communicate. If they are in different VLANs, they will not be able to communicate unless you use a router to get between the networks. And this is where the terminology router on a stick comes into play. So we'll make this client one router, a router on a stick in a second. We just quickly want to see what happens if we have VLAN 90 on the switch, and if the coffees can communicate with each other, but we want to see what happens if it tries to communicate with the LAN network. So let's make the coffees 192.168.200.10 and .20. Can I zoom out a little bit? Yes. So there's our coffees. We'll just quickly statically assign their IPs as well. So IP 192.168.200.10. Let's make it a /25 with 192.168.200.1 as the gateway. That will be the router's address on VLAN 90. All right, let's go into the second VPC or the second coffee, IP 192.168.200.20/25 with 192.168.200.1 being the gateway. Cool. So these two devices will already be able to communicate because they're both kind of on VLAN 1 on the switch, but let's just fix that up by going into the switch. And then in the switch, we're just going to add VLAN 90. Name is coffee. Let's write that, and then we can go into config t int E03 and E10. So interface, let's do an interface range E03 and E10. Can we do this? E10, that works. Okay, so we're going to go switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 90. All right, so VLAN 90 is the access ports for coffee and VLAN 88 access port for the LAN. So let's see, on our coffee machine, so let's say coffee 1, can coffee 1 ping 192.168.200.20? It should, but I get this feeling it's just going to fail because now I need to like disconnect and reconnect cables again. This is getting annoying. Delete that, delete that. So E03. In theory, these VPCs should be able to get to each other. No, I don't want to assign another IP. Can I ping? 192.168.200.20. Come on, that should work. Show VLAN. So there's VLAN 90 on ET03 and ET10. So it is untagged. So this should work just fine, but it's not. So in theory, most vendors would not allow you to assign the same IP address on the same, like on a different VLAN on the same interface. Like there's some vendors that kind of allow you to do that, but you shouldn't have to do that. And it will cause issues if you would. So let's say you had VLAN 88 and VLAN 90, and you made them both the same subnet. The router is going to also kind of get confused with the connectivity, because both the VLANs will be its directly connected route, and it's not necessarily going to work correctly. So this is also technically why you'll see people use different IP ranges in different VLANs. But I know that on some devices you can assign the same IP range to a different VLAN, especially if it's on different VRFs. So this you might actually see in MikroTik, because you might have people but VRFs is a much more advanced concept, or thing that you'll deal with, like if you do the MTCINE. But let's say these WAN links, like between Ether 1 and Ether 3 on router 1 and client 1, you could have multiple links with the IP 10, 0, 0, whatever, on the same interface, but different VLANs. And then those VLANs you could put in their own VRFs, and then that wouldn't cause any issues with like your routing. But why is my coffee not working? And that's a good question. I should actually get some coffee. Obviously I can't ping .1. Can I ping .20? Yes. Can I ping .10? Yes. Alright, so it is working. So why was it not working just now? No clue. No clue, but now the two VPCs can get to each other. Okay, so our coffee VLANs can get to each other, but the question is, can the coffee VLAN, so this is now, let's go to this one. So this is the .10 one, and the .10 one is this left coffee. Can the left coffee get to 192.168.100 or 253, which is the DHCP IP of VLAN 88? Let's see. If we do a ping 192.168.100 253, can I ping that? No, I cannot. But I can ping my coffee brother, because we are on the same switch, and we don't need a router if we're in the same broadcast domain. If we're in the same VLAN, you don't need a router for devices that's in the same VLAN. This is why CCTV devices typically don't have stuff like internet breakout, but your NVR can get to all the cameras and stuff. It's because the stuff is in the same VLAN. You don't need a router. It can all run on a switch, and it could all communicate with each other. But let's do the router on a stick scenario. So we're going to bring this client 1 router up. And all that's going to happen is we're going to add VLAN 90 to Ether 2, give it an IP address, and then if these devices have the default gateway, they can use that router to learn how to get to the other networks. But this more or less now touches a bit more on routing and less more on VLANs. But I'm just trying to show some people how to get between different VLANs. If you have this type of setup where you have a switch, you are going to a router, and you want the VLANs to be able to communicate with each other. So let's jump on Winbox. I'm going to have to connect on Romon again. So connect Romon, connect onto client 1 router, go into our interfaces. Let's just zoom in again. Close all our interfaces, or close all our windows, go into our interfaces. We can go into VLAN, or just from the interfaces, add a new VLAN. And we can call this coffee VLAN. What was that VLAN? 90. So VLAN 90. Our VLAN IT is 90. Our interface is Ether2 because that is the uplink interface going to our switch. And we can just apply that. So now our coffee VLAN is live on the router. And I also just need to tag this on the switch quickly. So what we're going to do is config t int e00 switch port trunk allow VLAN 90. Let's save that. And now in theory, if I go to my VPC, is this .10? Yes. So can I now ping 192.168.200.1? No, I can't, because I haven't assigned that IP to the VLAN yet. So let's just assign that. So 192.168.200.1/25 onto the coffee VLAN. So now from the coffee VLAN, I can actually get to the router from the VPC. And from the VPC, can I now get to 192.168.100.253? It's currently timing out, but I would actually expect this kind of to work as well. So let's just see, does this VLAN 88 still have that IP? IP. Let's just see, do I still have internet out? No. All right, so I don't think I've got an IP currently, but it's probably because of that restart from earlier. So IP DHCP. And let's see, do I get any type of breakout? Why am I getting a bunch of Ds? Oh, I know what happened. So when I added the VLAN, I didn't append it now to the switch. So let's just go back, config t int e00 switch port trunk allow allowed VLAN add 88. All right, now our DORA should work, though I might have to reconnect the cable as well, which again is annoying. Let's just check on the switch, show run int e00. So 88 to 90 is being allowed, show VLANs. Okay, this looks fine. Yeah, so let's just reconnect these cables quickly, because I don't know why it happens. It's annoying. And I might have to restart some devices again. Delete you, connect you up. And let's see, can we now get a DORA? There we go, that looks good. So now we've got an IP address of 253. So let's go back to coffee 1 and see, can we ping? Yes, we can ping between the networks because we're using router on a stick. So essentially these devices in VLAN 90 and also the device in VLAN 88, they are getting to their respective gateways, and then their respective gateways, which is the router for both, knows how to get to the opposite networks. And that's why the traffic is now succeeding, because on the router, if we go into our IP routes, it knows how to get to both networks. So it will just be able to route the traffic between the networks. So that's why we use routers. It's to be on the edge of the broadcast and to stop broadcast traffic, and also just to get between networks, to act as that toll gate. All right, so we've now covered basically adding VLANs on layer 2, which is just on a switch level. We've also added VLANs for some basic stuff like WAN connectivity, and done stuff like VLANs for DHCP connectivity and router on a stick. So we did this in the last 2 hours. I mean, this is a bunch of information, and I know some of it might seem like madman stuff to some people, but I do feel like there is some worthful or good knowledge in this episode at least. So I think review this stuff if you're still uncertain about VLANs. Otherwise, I'll see if I can find a CRS for the people that's more interested in the MikroTik VLAN setup. But I do feel like VLANs, it is straightforward. You tag stuff, you untag stuff. It should just be that simple. When VLANs start getting more complex, and maybe I'll make a separate episode on that, it's when we start dealing with stuff like jumbo frames and when you start tweaking things in the MTU, because that's also something that confuses people a lot. Like, what is a good MTU size? What should the MTU size be? Is 1500 good? 1500 is obviously good because that's what the internet uses to speak. But there's a lot of things that you could do with your MTU by decreasing or increasing its values. But that is really a lot of different information, and I will try and cover that later on. Anyways, I'm going to end off the stream. I'd like to thank everybody again for watching. Huge thanks to Lacro and Michael, especially for the assistance with this bridge switching on the CHR. It was quite interesting to me to see how we had to basically tag the VLAN on the port where you assign the port on the bridge instead of doing that from the VLAN tab. But at least I also learned something, so that was pretty nice. So thanks again, everybody. I'll catch you guys in the next stream. See ya.